IMEC is just not a corridor. It is basically a new vision and a new infrastructure and all the business associated with it, connectivity associated with it, and also the new partnerships that will come along with it. And therefore, it will be kind of a game changer, a new paradigm in the entire geopolitics, geoeconomics, and also, which I am more interested in, is also connecting the people and the businesses. It is the bold articulation of a multipolar economic order driven by values and just not value chains. Of course, India is going to play a very strategic role in this because it sits on the eastern edge of this entire corridor, which makes IMEC special, that it reflects the way India sees the world. And as Prime Minister Modi has already said in several times, that one earth, one family, one future, this will not only help India, but also help several other countries on the route. There are also several opportunities along with the corridor, and it offers very alternate route and connectivity, and therefore, in a way, bypass several geopolitical issues, which I don't need to mention right now. It also will save a lot of transportation cost and energy, and therefore will help in achieving our sustainability goals. Also, there is a cultural aspect which I would like to emphasize. Our vibrant cultural heritage and dynamism of Indian diaspora are very potent forces. Leveraging these strengths not only builds bridges between civilizations, but also lays the foundation of lasting political and economic alliances. And from that aspect also, this corridor is going to be very useful. So with this, I will stop here and request both the panelists to give some opening remarks, and then we can go for some question and answer sessions.
Thank you. First, I noted that I'm the only one, or first one, representing a European Union member country here today. Although my state, Finland, is one of the small ones, European Union together is the biggest economy in the world, comprising 27 states, and some of us also have the common currency, the euro. And as we know, the European Union is based on core principle, the free movement of trade, goods, people, and services. Sir, you so rightly said that this is not only about trade route, it's also about connectivity and political and economic relations. It's also about integration, and you can also see it as some kind of counterweight to the Belt and Road Initiative. And in this connection, I also wanted to mention that the European Union has one thing called the Global Gateway Initiative, launched in 2021 by the European Commission. I would not say that these two initiatives are competing, they are complementary to each other, because the focus of the EU Global Gateway has been more on Africa until now, but it's also meant to be global in nature, also including progress towards Asia. When we construct this corridor, because it's still only an idea, we also need to keep in mind not only economic values, it's also sustainability, it's about labor standards, taking into account the environment on the route of the corridor, and so on. So this is really a big project, and it's not only an economic project. Finally, from the point of my own country, Finland, we are located in the northeastern corner of Europe. We have 1,300 kilometer border with Russia, but now our trade routes go only through the western route to Western Europe or direct to United States, direct to Asia. And this is because we have imposed sanctions on Russia because of the war on Ukraine. Okay, we are following the news. There might be some changes some peace is coming, but right now this western route via Western Europe towards the Gulf countries and India is a very important route. So in that sense, also this corridor initiative is a very important one from the perspective of my country.
I might take this opportunity because a number of you are probably wondering why is an Australian here speaking about these matters when it's about the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. So just to provide some context around that as well, as part of one of the caps I wear, I'm a fellow with the Milken Institute. And the Milken Institute provides a lot of thought leadership in relation to these matters. And in fact, we have our global conference in Los Angeles next week. And India is a very key component of focus for discussions around policy and policy development. So I just wanted to mention that. And secondly, and I'd like to address this in a little more detail, I work with a group called Stonepeak, which is the largest global independent infrastructure investor. And it's a US-based business headquartered out of New York. So I guess I'm leaning into those two hats more so than my previous background as Trade Minister. But to provide some additional context around this, which I think is important when we think about an initiative like IMEC, and that is that when I was negotiating trade deals, whether it was the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or whether we started negotiations with the European Union, or indeed when we were pursuing negotiations with my then counterpart Suresh Prabhu here in India, to look at doing a trade deal between Australia and India, there were always what you had called your offensive interests and your defensive interests. I think for IMEC, it will largely be the case that the hardest aspects will be the defensive interests, which 9 out of 10 times is agriculture. Agriculture is hard for India, agriculture is hard for Europe. So I would always suggest that for any government that's looking at doing a deal and to build the true potential of this initiative, putting agriculture to one side makes most sense. The real opportunity lies in what are the areas where we can find common ground and do a deal. And the area that I think is the most extraordinary right now is that the world is undergoing a third industrial revolution. We had the agricultural revolution, we had the industrial revolution, and now we're having the artificial intelligence revolution. AI, the impact of AI, is going to be, in my view, extraordinarily profound. It will, in my view, far exceed what we've seen taken place with changes from the advent of the internet. The internet, in my view, will seem like a small ripple compared to the wave that is artificial intelligence. Everything from robotics through to complete automation of manufacturing, through to wholesale change around the way in which decisions are taken, and you actually are able to harness the power of AI. We are seeing increasingly, for example, data centres being built around AI, hyper data centres that require just incredible amounts of energy to be able to power the processing that is needed for AI. And that's different to cloud processing. So why do I talk about that? Because any initiative that isn't geared towards what is going to be the industries of the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years is, in my view, going to not actually achieve anything. So therefore, what lay at the core of IMEC? The core of IMEC must be built on the premise of what is it going to look like in 20 years from now. And 20 years from now isn't about manufacturing as we know it today. Labour-intensive manufacturing, where there may have been, for example, historically, a cost advantage from cheaper labour, that is not going to exist. What would be the point of having labour-intensive, cost advantage industry, in particular manufacturing, if you're able to run that off robotics and do so with 24-hour-a-day uptime? So I think that for IMEC to truly succeed, it needs to harness a lot of the initiatives that are being taken around AI. And here's the good news. At the absolute forefront of AI is the GCC. If you look at what the UAE is doing, if you look at what Saudi is doing, if you look at the number of the key initiatives that are being undertaken, they are trying to leverage their cost advantage around energy price and energy security to make sure that they're at the forefront of AI. In my view, for a country like India, with its deep talent pool around artificial intelligence and its deep talent pool around, a mobile workforce, a highly intelligent workforce that's able to, program and take all of those advantages, this should be at the core, in my view, of what IMEC stands to achieve, because that is going to drives it for the next 20 years and not what it's been doing for the last 20 years.
Thank you. So I have first questions to Consul General Mr. Hällström. Finland is always seen as a country which is very high in innovation and also for sustainability and also in the digital technologies. So how you think Finland can contribute to the overall IMEC project?
Our economy is very export-oriented, and as you said, we have some strengths in this infrastructure, green tech, and smart logistics, and also digital services, which are always needed in all projects. So we will, of course, follow the process with keen interest, and we hope for a very transparent tendering process that is including bidders from all places of the world. And I think our companies, our knowledge will be very much of use for this whole project.
You have elaborated a lot on impact of new technologies such as artificial intelligence, etc., and how it will impact overall so-called today's job, etc. India-Australia relations have improved significantly in last 10 years, and with the preferred trade agreement also is one of the very big hallmark of this. How you think, in view of developments in the Indo-Pacific and also this new connectivity project which will change the paradigm of connectivity and the current relations of India-Australia, how both the countries can partner?
Well, to start with, we have a great appreciation for the wonderful game of cricket.
Yeah.
But aside from that, look, I think the opportunity really sits to see where we can find common ground, as I said. On any trade deal, on any initiative like this, you've got to find the areas where there's a crossover of interest. So for India and Australia, that does very much rely upon finding that crossover of interest economically. Australia can be a great provider of natural resources, a great provider of some talent, and Australia is good at sort of niche opportunities. India sits as a powerhouse right in the epicenter of the world, between Europe and Asia. So for Australia, the attractiveness of this market, not only as a sort of a centre point, a trading hub, but also because of the size of the market in and of itself, is one that I think is very attractive. So that is, in my view, the areas we can really focus on.
You mean to say that after this corridor, the way you are trading with the Europe and rest of the Western world will change dramatically?
There's potential for IMEC to reshape trade flows globally. There's no doubt about that. And it's recognising that potential that no doubt was the genesis for the initiative to begin with. The critical aspect, as I said, is to be able to capitalise on that and provide ease of doing business, provide, as I said, mutual recognition, provide a technology front, but also orient it towards future industries rather than past industries.
Yes, as you already said, there is potential, and it's a kind of a natural route if you look at the route from India to Europe, that it's start from the Indian west coast and then goes via Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and then some entry port in Europe. But as was already said in the last panel, the transports process has been really smooth when the cargo comes to the port and then the rail transport then from the second ceiling. There cannot be any unnecessary delays there. And one challenge is, of course, also that we need political stability. We cannot have the risk of terrorism attacks, and we need peace in the Middle East and smooth border crossings between these countries in the Gulf area.
Yeah, thank you. In that context, can you elaborate on what's the status of India-EU trade deal and how, if successful, will impact this grand project of IMEC?
Yeah, IMEC is one big, great idea, which we hope will succeed. Another very big area, but in a different context, are the free trade agreement negotiations between European Union and India. And there have been about 8 or 9 rounds, and they have not been progressing as soon as we hope. But of course, the higher level, we hope for a conclusive agreement that covers both trade and investments, which could bring more stability to both India and European businesses. But despite we are not having this trade deal, it's trade between Europe and India is flourishing, and investments are coming in both directions, Indian investments to Finland and Europe and European investments to India. But of course, comprehensive free trade agreement would build a framework around it and bring more security. So I really hope that both these big projects will realize both the IMEC and the free trade agreement.
What kind of policy framework you are looking for the success of this project?
Well, this is of course international cooperation. So all the countries which are there on the route must agree on this. But of course, it's also important to remember the global perspective and the rules-based international order, the law of the seas, and And as I mentioned as I mentioned earlier, also the sustainability aspect and sustainable development goals evaluated by United Nations. So it's a really complex, comprehensive project. It's not only to build a railway and some ports.
Yeah,
you have
correct.
to take all these aspects in consideration.
I know we're out of time, so I'll be very brief. I agree about the rules-based international order. That's going to be the critical driver for this to work well.
So thank you, thank you both the panelists.